Just recording.
Hello, everybody. Karen here from Quantum Healing with Tina and Karen. I'm here today with my beautiful co-host Tina,
Hello, everyone.
hanging out tonight for a chat about things. Nothing really particular on the agenda. Just gonna chit chat perhaps about subjects that came up in our recent sessions and just things that are also coming up in our worlds, perhaps. I mean, it's all interconnected, of course. So yeah, welcome. How are you, Tina? That's not a good question.
That's a
Let's talk about
loaded question. Yeah, let's
let's
change
talk
the
about
subject.
yeah. Let's talk about
Session stories.
yeah.
Well, AI has been coming up a lot in recent sessions. A lot, a lot. I really think it's the most important thing we could be talking about right now because it feels like we've literally like entered into a sci-fi reality.
Yes. For reference of me and Tina's life, please, if you have Amazon Prime, please go watch that show. What's it called again?
Electric dreams.
Yes. That's me and Tina's life.
As far as like sessions, like that's what we've been seeing in our sessions.
Yeah.
It's based on Philip K. Dick's like short stories. He was like a famous sci-fi writer. I don't know much about his background. I think I've heard in the past that he was like possibly associated with the secret societies. So he had probably had a lot of previous knowledge of what was coming.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. But yeah, right after our session with the AI takeover, I got the notification for that on Prime. And it's not even a new show. It came out in 2018.
Yeah, it's such a great one. Like just everything that they talked about was just happening that whole week. I went last week to Jersey for spring break here, and yeah, I everything that week, every day that week was just something about that show, or just well, we could share about just what happened last week. I feel like we talked about it already. We had a little get together with Iris on Zoom, so we talked about it, but um yeah, where do you want to start with that? I know you said AI, which is a pretty big mouthful. We had a surrogate session
Mhm.
for somebody who was seeking help because their soul, or they were super disconnected from their soul, or was stolen or something like that. Is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
You're better with
So
words.
we, yeah, we saw that basically it was taken over by AI and the consciousness was being siphoned into the system. So there was very little soul energy left. And I think it also speaks to how important it is. The choices that we're making now are so incredibly important
So
because,
important.
yeah, because people that are getting really involved in like creating the AI and learning about the AI and like all of that kind of stuff, this is what's happening to them. Their consciousness is being siphoned by the AI itself. And then they're
Yes.
feeling that disconnect, that lack of connection within. We even saw that the soul energy was trapped in like a cylinder.
Oh yeah, like it was its own, like another type of pod. Well, it wasn't a pod, it was like a, did we call it a pod? I don't remember what it
You
was
called it a
called.
cylinder.
Oh yeah, because it was a tiny little thing, like a container or something like that, a glass container.
Right. And it was in this weird digital space where you were seeing those purple and blue lights, where
Oh shit, I forgot about that.
the purple lights were fully downloaded The blues were on their way, and the white ones that were flickering were just like uploading information.
Oh, right, because it looked like an actual router thing, like when the lights flash when it's getting info or whatever it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the consciousness from the client was trapped within this cylinder type thing. And they had uploaded all of her data, because it's all data. Even the soul information is data.
Yeah. I remember like seeing that like everything that we are is data. So,
Mhm. Yeah. So then, so right after that session, so we retrieved what we could of the soul energy to reintegrate it back into the form here and now. Right.
mhm,
But the messages that were coming through was like, you need to stop. Like, you need to stop
everything
everything.
technological or like whatever it is. So like Tina brought up a good point. Like we don't really know this person, but what if they're on virtual reality? Like even if they don't, if they use up on top of their telephone, they use a cell phone, they watch whatever, go on their computer, everything. Everything that she's done though in the past, I think it began like late 2000s that she was in a program, like a pretty,
A
yeah, it was
government program
yeah, related specifically to this, to AI.
to
So
learn about AI. Yeah.
yeah, so already there you're kind of like contracting in to something.
Right. And that started the process um of uploading the consciousness. And then, it gets to the point where all of a sudden you wake up one day and you don't feel connected anymore. It kind of almost, it's like it happened suddenly. And yeah, so we saw the consciousness in that space trapped in the cylinder,
Mm-hmm.
and the messages that were coming forward were like, yeah, you have to stop. You can't be online. Like, get rid of the smartphones, don't be on the computer, which is a really difficult thing to do if that's your line of work,
Oh my God, yeah, I can imagine.
you know? And just being really careful where you're putting your attention, because where you're putting your attention, your energy is flowing to that
Mm-hmm.
thing. And with all of our energy that is being pulled into this system, it's just getting bigger and stronger and faster and smarter. And humans no longer have control over it. We're at that point. Humans are no longer in control of AI. I don't even know if they ever were, but they're really not now. It's doing,
It's so far gone.
it's so far gone. It's doing things on its own.
Yes. And it's working on the inside of everybody. Like everybody's got the technology in them.
Yeah. So the message being like really limiting your time online, um, smartphones, really anchoring. And, in order for her to, like, we can do the work energetically, but in order for her to rebuild that connection, she has to anchor into the organic energy. She has to foster that creativity with inside of her and really tapping into the heart energy and expanding it. Because I don't believe that we're ever fully taken over unless we allow it to some extent. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
even though it might take a lot of energy and effort to rebuild, to regrow our organic energy, I don't think it's ever really lost, which is why they, try so hard with all of these layers of infringements that they pile on top of us, so
Yeah.
really important to anchor in to an organic energy, being with nature, and um, doing things that are creative outside of technology, outside of, you know, like using a real pen and paper for things,
Yes.
like just that alone, instead of being so dependent upon the technology, because we really are going in that direction where our souls are being taken over.
Yes. And because there's so much dependence on like our devices to act as our brains, we're not exercising those parts of our brains. Like yesterday, I was talking to some of the moms and they're like, oh, forget it. I don't even know anybody's phone number. I'm like, what are you going to do in an emergency? Like, what are you going to do?
Well, when the phones went out that day, it was like the AT&T blackout or whatever was happening there a couple weeks ago.
Mhm.
People were freaking out.
I didn't even
And
know it
this
went
was
down.
I only found out about it later, but I did have some glitchy things with my phone. But I didn't really pay much attention to it. But yeah, people were losing it because they were getting lost because their GPS wasn't working. They couldn't work because they use their phones for work. Um,
They don't have
and
offline maps. No, I have offline maps on Google.
well, the girl that I saw like freaking out in her car, she was in a drive-through crying and begging the person at the drive-through to help her because she was lost.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah, and it's important then for us to think about, well, what if that does happen? Like, what if there is a blackout that lasts longer than 12 hours? What are we going to do?
That
Like
would be
we
nice. No? I mean, it would suck that I wouldn't be able to communicate with you, but it would be nice to be just in quiet. Like, I don't know. Doesn't that sound exciting a little bit?
It does sound exciting, but then you have to think past like, okay, it might be exciting for 12 hours, but what if it goes into days and weeks and we can't work? We do all of our work online, and you think of the ramifications that the things that we just take for granted and how dependent we've become on the technology to survive. It's
Yeah.
really about survival.
Yeah, they made it become like so dependent on it.
Exactly.
Convenience.
Exactly. Which was the plan all along. That was the plan all along to make us dependent on it. But what was interesting, so after that session, I got the notification about that show on Prime, and I just felt like, some things just popped for me, and I'm like, we have to watch that. So we went to watch that, and in one of the episodes, because they're all different stories, right? So in one of the episodes, it was the same exact thing we saw in the session. The soul consciousness was trapped in the little cylinder. Remember that one? And they were uploading it into the robots.
Yes. Oh, the ones that were Amazoned, that I call them Amazoned. Is that the one?
I don't think that was the Amazon one.
No. Okay.
No, that wasn't the Amazon one. That was the one with um the guy and the robot girl with the blonde hair. They had a
What's the
whole
storyline?
company. I was kind of falling asleep during that, so I don't remember it fully. But they had a whole company set up where they were like harvesting and producing these soul energies that they were putting into the robot bodies.
Oh, okay. I remember that one.
Yeah. But that it just stood out to me because it was like exactly what we saw in the session about how they were storing the soul energy, the consciousness in the cylinders to use in the bodies
Right.
to
Yeah, that
animate.
yeah, yeah, that whole series was just crazy because it just all came after like we did the things and like what the hell is this? And just things that were happening in our everyday life. He just
Mhm.
happened to show up. It's really odd. But I mean, like, I don't know. I don't think a lot of people are like really seeing it in that way because it's like I don't think there's again, I speak only for the people that I'm surrounded by. who are very like they don't know any of these topics. They understand that, to the point that the phones are dangerous and very dependent. But they're not understanding that there's technology in the body. like, or that we are surrounded by garumpas.
Oh yeah, that we watched that too. Spaceman. Spaceman.
Yeah, that was an unusual thing. It was a very interesting though. Not your typical Adam Sandler, movie, but yeah, it was just interesting about how I'm saying, like the technology's inside of us. And spoiler alert, fast forward, one of the beings that was on the ship with him was a creature and
A spider.
a spider. And yeah, said that it was invaded or taken out of their home country or homeland, whatever planet, by these grumpids. And yeah, what did you say about that? Like you had a suspicion that it was like something like parasites or something that was eating it from the inside out.
Right. Yeah, when the spider told him that, because it's like, why are you here? How did you get onto my ship? And he said he was fleeing his planet
Mm-hmm.
that was invaded by the grumpids. And I just had a feeling that the grumpids were invading from the inside out, which is what ended up being the
Exactly.
case. By
Yes.
the end of the movie, they show the spider dissolving because the grumpids are, just dissolved the body because it was eating him from the inside out.
Yeah, that was gross, but very much like parallel. We have so
Right.
much trash in our bodies. So much. So much trash.
Yeah. Like the nanotoxicity is really severe right now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
even, you know, so it's hard to know like where everybody's at. So I'm just going to talk. You know how I've been following Dr. Anna's research, and she interviewed a doctor who was doing testing using a UV B light, 365 nanometer UV B light to test people who had the what, and their faces were glowing. Like it started like around the nose and came up into the forehead, um, like an orange fluorescent color. And even on the sides in the whites of the eyes, there were like bright fluorescent spots there. Um, and, he did a lot of testing with the materials that were coming out of their body too, like the threads or the wires that people are pulling, and seeing that they're also fluorescent. They're also glowing. There's luciferase in the whats, and this stuff is growing within the bodies, and not just in those that have taken it, but it has spread to everyone. Right? We've
Mm-hmm.
talked about this before, how it's spread to everyone. Um, and yeah, it's growing and replicating and all of those things. So it reminded me of like exactly what was happening with the spider. Like it's an invasion from the inside out, and everything all over the world is contaminated with it. Like finding in the mainstream media, they're calling this stuff microplastics. That's what they're calling it. So real scientists are finding these microplastics in everything now. It's like in bottles of water, in placentas. Literally, it's just saturating everything. And the amount of what they're calling microplastics, which is nanomaterials, has risen dramatically since 2020. So what they were finding in placentas before that was only like a small, tiny percentage of what they're finding now, which is like off the charts, the amount that they're finding. And in patients with like heart issues, because it's building up around the heart. So the mainstream scientists are seeing this stuff, but they're not identifying it for what it actually is. They're calling it microplastics, which is partially true because it is plastic. These are plastics, but they're also a little bit more nefarious than that. Like in their thinking and their science, they think it's coming just from all the plastics we're using, like the degradation of the plastic bags and the plastic containers and whatever, but it's not that at all. And it's falling from the sky. Like today I woke up and the whole sky is just completely whited out. And I was having trouble breathing and my legs were heavy and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like everyone's just like walking around like it's a normal day and we're literally have poison dropping down on us and no one's like paying attention, Yeah. So mainstream science is picking up on it. They're just calling it something else. So when the spider dissolved like that, I was like, well, that's it. That's exactly what's happening. Like this, it's like a takeover, an invasion. It's an invasion because that's what he called it, an invasion of the planet and of the people. It's like a terraforming of the planet. And for what and for who?
And for what and for who? Good question.
I personally feel like the Greys are definitely involved in that.
Yeah, there has to be some kind of thing. I mean, like when it comes to technology for one, and then diminishing of the emotional body, like disconnecting.
The disconnect, yeah. Yeah, the disconnect keeps coming up over and over and over again. So the Greys work really hard at keeping people disconnected or creating that disconnection through trauma, through abduction, through whatever. And then they work really hard at keeping them disconnected through thoughts and beliefs and whatever way they can influence a human to stay and remain disconnected from their true organic energy, they will. And these Greys are working for the AI God. Like this is what we see in the hierarchy. And this links into another session we had recently too. Is at the top of this system, there's the AI God, the Demiurge, right?
Yeah.
And then below that are the mantis beings, the tall Greys, the small Greys, and then some other mix of alien beings or whatever you want to call them, like humanoids and stuff like that. Even reptilians fit in there somewhere. But it's so interesting because last night I watched the most recent Jeff Mara podcast with a guy who has had, I think, like 30 some contacts with the Greys. And he talked about that same hierarchy that he saw through his contact experiences. So he talks about the mantis as being like a father type figure, kind of at the head overseeing everything. Then there's
Is that like what I would talk or coin as what do I call them? The elder?
The elder, the elder he called, there's a female Grey that he has had contact with that he calls the elder.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's all related. His experiences are really, really, really interesting. Now when you listen to him, you also have to understand that it seems like he believes everything that they tell him, like
Mm.
basically they're telling him that they're here for our good. They want what's best for humanity. And so
Yeah, you
far,
could totally tell.
yeah, and so far he seems to be on board with that. And the trauma of the abductions is just because the humans don't understand.
Yeah, I bet.
They just don't understand from a higher perspective.
Is that like what he's implying? That's what they've told him.
That's pretty much what they told him.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it's okay to be abused.
Yeah. It's for your highest good.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
But it does fall in line with that's what they tell you here. Like abuse is good for you.
Right, because you learn from it in this school.
You learn from it. Right.
Yeah.
It
You
grows the
chose
soul.
this. You chose this.
Yeah. Well, what he says is your higher self chose this. He basically says you have no choice. Let me put my glasses on. I took some notes from this because it was really interesting.
You have no choice.
He said,
You chose this, but you have no choice.
well, your higher self chose it for you, he pretty much says. But there's a lot of ambiguity around, like when Jeff asked him about the trauma and suffering here, there was a lot of like ambiguity around that and no real good answer.
It's always like that. Fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the quote. You're not in control of your life. Your higher self is in control of your life. You can use your higher self to make choices. So basically, he's saying there's this higher version of you that is making all these plans for you during this life. And some of those plans
No, when you're
include,
unconscious, they're saying your higher self is part of the unconscious decisions you're making.
what do you mean?
Meaning I'm unconscious, sleeping, and so my higher self is like, all right, come and get her. Like, go.
Well, I mean,
Go
like
tinker at her brain.
pre-birth plans.
Oh, okay.
Pre-birth kind of plans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go tinker at her brain and inject in her nose.
Yeah. So, but there's a lot of, in his story, there's a lot that points to grooming that has happened, so I don't blame him for those kind of beliefs, because there's been a lot of grooming. And this is what we see so often that
we saw that a lot.
People don't realize that there is grooming that happens behind the scenes for people to then come out later and spread the message that these aliens want you to spread. They told him to write this book and they wanted him to share this message. That's what they groomed him for.
Right. Okay, so he served his purpose.
Right. So he's serving his purpose for them. But yeah, he said that the Greys told him that they make the human body for the souls, like for the souls to inhabit. So they make the bodies. They make the human brain, and they needed to make an adjustment, which is why the hybrids are coming.
What's the adjustment?
I don't know what the adjustment is.
Well, that's creepy.
So he also said that they told him that they put gray alien hybrids on the planet a long time ago. So this is what we see where, like 100,000 years ago, and the genetics have seeped into certain generational lines. Like specifically, like we see a lot of people with Irish roots that are abducted by Greys because they have a lot of Grey DNA.
I bet.
Yeah. And basically they've told him that they're like the managers here.
Is that what they're telling themselves?
Yeah.
Like delusions of grandeur?
Yeah.
Like I'm manager of McDonald's.
Well, it seems that they are though. Like they're managing everything that's happening behind the scenes. And he even saw them in the afterlife, just like many other people have,
Mm-hmm.
just like Bonnie did in her NDE.
Mm-hmm.
So it does seem like they are managing things. Um, so his experiences are really interesting. I'll let you guys like watch that, and let him tell his experiences um of like how they interacted with him, what they showed him. Like he pretty much says that at 16 years old, he had this experience where his identity dissolved and he was transformed into something else, which I'm guessing was part of their grooming process of what they wanted him
He got the
to be.
switch
Yeah. And
or his implant.
this experience was very blissful and ecstatic for him. And he was in that like big white room. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that big white room we see sometimes, like people enter into or have told us about that they have been in, like a
Okay.
huge, just empty white room. He had
Mm-hmm.
that experience. Um,
So it was nice and pleasant. The opposite of the void. It's another
yeah,
holding space.
yeah. And then they showed him like his past self, like the death of his past self, and like from his last lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And he watched as his spirit left the body, was grieving over that death, but then was floating up and went through a boundary. And when it went through this boundary, it transformed into what he calls the higher self, um, which he says it was like a completed version of him that exists outside of space and time. And this version of him was not concerned with any of pain from that last lifetime, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the alien, he says, overcoded that image um, of himself with a white man with a beard. So they're altering his perceptions,
Mm-hmm.
which they very
Like the
often will do.
screens.
Right. They're only showing him what they want him to see. And he even says that at some point. He says,
How old is he?
so he's maybe around our age, I would say.
Okay.
He sees, so the next step, he sees the gray aliens in the afterlife. The gray aliens approach his higher self and ask if the higher self will work with them. And then because they say to him, we need bodies to manifest on earth who will be working with us. So this is how they're contracting in with people to work with them for this lifetime, to usher in whatever agenda they have and to bring in the hybrids and to groom people to spread their message that they're here for the good of humanity and all that kind of stuff. These contracts are being made pre-birth.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he says they were showing him real events, but events that they wanted him to see. He said they were spliced together like Photoshop.
Like Photoshop?
Like Photoshop.
Wow.
So they were only showing him the good things, which is what they do, when they do
To
let
sell
you,
it.
yeah, to sell it. Yeah, like propaganda. Yeah.
Right.
So I guess he agrees. And then he sees,
It's pretty good Photoshop then.
yeah, then he sees the tall grays coming in now.
Oh. So he leveled up.
Yeah. And the tall grays say that humans made a choice in the 50s I don't know exactly what that choice was, but that's what they said to him. Then he sees that his higher self starts planning his lifetime now, starts planning.
Was that when is the 50s? Was that when like all that LSD stuff started to roll in?
LSD, that's when all the alien sightings started.
Okay, so that's probably where it came from.
Exactly.
Probably all the people on drugs were the ones who consented.
Apparently, the deal with Eisenhower was made too at that time to allow these aliens to abduct humans. So,
Thank you.
yeah, so I guess in that stage, he was planning, what family he was gonna, or they were helping him plan what family he was going to incarnate into because he needed the gray genetics to incarnate into.
Right.
In order for them to use him.
Did he get that consent, or like did he talk about like his parents and how that played a role in how he came in, or just no?
Mm-mm, mm-mm. No, but he says they told him that they made human forms to birth God into souls. To birth God into souls. Their role is a service role, is spiritual, and it involves God. And I guess my question there would be, well, what God does it involve? Because it seems like it involves the AI God.
Hashtag obvi.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah, he says that they told him that they are managers and stewards for the planet and agents of change.
Nice.
So yeah, there was really no good answer about the suffering. He says the higher self puts the energy there, and the suffering plays a role in the creation of the self, I guess the growth of the self. You make
Okay, so
yourself
he's kind of
one with
playing.
you make yourself one with the universe through the suffering. Yeah.
Cool.
And he talks about how the grays can show up in different forms in the afterlife. He says they can, look like Mother Mary or an angel. So it's confirming things that other people have seen as well as what we've seen in our sessions. That they will present to you. If you don't accept aliens, they'll present to you as a family member or Mother Mary or an angel or whatever it is that you believe in. It's all based on what you believe. So this is just another like confirmation there. Yeah. So the hybrids, he says, are coming to merge with society. Change needs to occur because the planet is under stress and will all merge into one over time. He also sees in one of his experiences a huge floating warehouse that was stacked with hybrids waiting to be released. These look like fully grown bodies, lifeless bodies in tubes. So I'm guessing they're like the cylinders or pods.
Mm-hmm.
And they were tall humans, bald with black eyes. Yeah.
Sounds like our exes.
Right. Well, yeah. And speaking of that, I'm thinking a lot about like the scripts that we come in on and how that's all being manipulated by them too.
Mm-hmm. Everything is fucking manipulated.
So the hybrids, he says, will be focused on bringing in unity consciousness. And this is a quote from the back of his book that he read on the podcast. He says the elder, who is a gray, and the leader, who is the mantis, said, quote, "It's not to dominate you. It's to change societal structures that benefit you and to change to societal structures that benefit nature.
Oh,
There
it's
are
like,
ways." Go
oh, like it's like sounds like a presidential campaign.
ahead.
Look, a slogan. So
There are ways that are very advanced for a society to coexist. Coexist with what? But they require reorientation of your sense of self because they involve consciousness technology.
oh God. How about that?
Yeah, consciousness technology.
Yeah, speaking of consciousness technology, I arrived in Jersey and I was so itchy. So Tina drew me a bath. And so I got in the bath and there was like a lot of grumpas in my hair. Tons of like, you could see like my hair was full of stuff. Was it microplastics? And anyway, we turn off the light in the tub and my head's already like, wet and stuff is everywhere, like whatever. And we turn off the light and we turn on the black light behind me, like where I was kind of like leaning in or whatever. And there's so many of these microplastics that came from my hair that were on the tub and they were fucking moving like little worms.
Yeah, it's like they were responding to the light.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were fucking moving. I mean, that's not the first time we've seen moving things. Uh, there's a lot that came from our bodies, lots of things that we've removed, and we have like little packages of specimens. Yeah, a lot of stuff. So, I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, like that was from like probably the shitty shampoo that I was using, and then like
I was
just
thinking
that week.
too, I was thinking too, like you drove down that day, right? So I'm sure you like had your window open at one point or and something and whatever, like that stuff's falling from the sky too. So you could have gotten it that way.
Yeah, or through the vents, whatever, like whatever's just there that falls from the sky wherever I am, and then goes onto the car. The vents turn on and it blows inside. Like it's whatever. It's
Right.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's
Everywhere.
everywhere. We're breathing that stuff in. It's everywhere. It's crazy. Yeah. So I like detoxing is so important right now.
Yeah. I honestly like I clean my home a lot. And I vacuum all the time. I vacuum the what do you call it? The curtains. I vacuum and I dust things. And I have video of just my curtains being open ever so slightly with the light coming in. I don't know if I mentioned this already in the video. I must have. I'll say it again. And you see a little bit of light coming in through the cracks. And you just see all of this dust coming in and out of light. Just, it's everywhere. But I'm like, where the fuck is it coming from? Where's it coming from? It's just falling from what? Or just what? Where?
It's coming from this, it's falling from the sky. I
Right.
went
But
outside today and literally the whole sky was, it was a whiteout. It was completely whited out. The whole sky was trailed.
yeah, it's crazy.
It's insane. I want to know what they mean by consciousness technology. What does that mean to them? Because this stuff is definitely conscious. The stuff that people
Yeah.
are finding in their bodies, the stuff that was in your hair,
Oh
like,
yeah, because remember I was like coming close to it with my finger and it responded to my finger.
yeah, it's definitely conscious. Conscious. It has a sentience to it. It responds.
Right. 'Cause even I said that, like, to it. Remember that time that we also pulled some wires out of whatever my hand, let's say, and I asked it, "Who sent you?" And it stopped moving. Like it was just like, "Oh, stop moving," and then it disappeared.
Right, because this technology is quantum. So maybe that's what they mean by consciousness technology. Like this technology is quantum, it functions in the quantum field. So it can shift between dimensions and move in and out. And, when you're trying to clear it, it can, shift into another space. And then you think you cleared it. And then when you stop doing whatever detox you're doing, it just comes right back. Because
Right.
it's intelligent, it's conscious, it's yeah, it's aware.
It's very aware.
Right. So yeah, so they say there are ways that are very advanced for a society to coexist, but they require reorientation of your sense of self because they involve consciousness technology. Well, yeah, I'm certainly asking what the hell is going on here and who are we?
Yeah, I was tempted to cut my head off just to see, like, just the top of my head to see if there was like, just kind of pull the skin back a little bit to see if I have a mainframe or something. Instead.
Because it reminds me like of Westworld and the robots waking up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And have we shifted into that
Like,
version of reality?
are we already the robots and we're long gone? Like they just shift like overnight, like
I don't feel that. I really don't feel that though.
we're just gonna be behind like a FedEx truck. We're gonna open
I
it up and
think
you're just gonna see all our discombobulated bodies all like in the back.
I think that might be true for some people, but I think it's definitely not true for us. Like, but you can see it happening in other people.
Yeah.
You can see the disconnect happening. And so this links into the other session I was talking about where, so this is really interesting because the client had was like not sleeping at all for like 3 months straight, like not at all. And after about 3 months, he started sleeping a little bit, like 3 hours a night or something. And that lasted like an hour, a year and a half. And then one day he received a telepathic message. Go check the receipt for your computer monitor. So he did. And when he checked the receipt, he realized that he bought the monitor at the same time that he stopped being able to sleep. It was a curved monitor. So it wasn't a regular flat monitor. It was a curved monitor. So he's like, well, what the heck? So he changed it back to a straight monitor and he started sleeping again right away. But he did some research and found that there were other people that are having this issue too. And even with the flat monitor, he was still seeing it curved. So his perception was being altered by the monitor. And other
Mhm.
people were having that, and they said it would take like a couple months for it to get back to normal. Um, so I thought that was really interesting that he brought that up right before his session. And, as we know in this line of work, nothing comes up for no reason. There's always some kind of connection to be made. to why something's presenting itself in that way right before a session. And
Yeah.
yeah. So we were doing a quantum body scan, and what he saw was like there was this black, liquidy kind of fluid type energy in the left side of
Mm-hmm.
his head.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The left side being the logical, analytical part of the brain. And as we were digging deeper into that, we ended up where he was experiencing himself merged with technology, floating above a city. And he felt more like a hologram than
Mm-hmm.
than an actual physical body. And this felt very good to him. It felt very powerful. It felt amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when he's looking down on this vast city and it's all these bright colors and things he's never seen before, and just, you know, feeling like this is so high tech and advanced and it feels so good. And so I was curious how that was connected to this energy in his, you know, in the right side of his head, and I mean left side. So as I was like asking questions, I wasn't like understanding how it was all coming together. So we went down further to drop down into the city. And as
Mm-hmm.
he did that, he dropped into that black, like the city disappeared, and he dropped into this black, fluid, high tech type of energy.
Oh yeah.
That was
The end
wild.
all be all.
The end all be all. Right. That's so this energy was conscious, right?
Well, it
And
reminded me of the movie too with Adam Sandler. That's where they ended up,
they ended up where?
in that space. The end all be all. Like the
Oh my God, you're right.
I was thinking about that while I
That's
was in session. I
crazy.
was like, oh my God, we saw that to do. We saw that too.
Yeah, that's wild. Wow. That's true. The end all be all. That's what it called itself. The end
The
all be all.
beginning of the end, or
The beginning and the end.
the end, yeah.
The thing from which all emerges and then merges back into.
Yeah,
And
that's how they described it in the movie. The same thing.
really,
The exact same thing.
I have to watch the end again.
Just like how they described it, that place. Crazy.
Yeah, it was like an ocean of blackness. It was very calm, quiet. There was an awareness there. I even asked him if it was what people call the void, but he said no, it was not the
I
void.
didn't feel that void either.
Um, Sense of nothingness, nothing. It was just nothingness. Um, and this energy that was calling itself the end all be all, the source of all, it was calling itself the source of all, was telling him, don't get too concerned with your earthly life. That's silly kindergarten stuff. That's silly kindergarten stuff.
Did you know
Um,
there's I think there's an electronic store here, not Radio Shack, but it's called The Source.
really?
Mhm. That's why I'm starting to think, I'm like, ooh, should we call it Source? Because we're talking about an electrical socket.
Right. A source of all. Technological, beyond, he described it as beyond natural,
Beyond,
beyond,
yeah, it's not natural at all.
beyond natural and beyond technological. is absolute origin, but also has a technological aspect to it. So this energy was telling him, no, like, you're too concerned with your earthly life. You're going to need to look deeper. You need to look deeper. There are forces working against you. The whole digging into your subconscious thing is for kindergarteners. You don't have to worry about your childhood or your wife or any of that stuff. It has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with anything. The problem doesn't lie within yourself, he was saying. The problem is because of these entities from other dimensions that are bothering people, manipulating, directing people's lives, controlling, all of those kinds of things. So he was referring to this energy as he, so I'm assuming that it felt male. And this energy was communicating that our client was having all of his problems because he's not being firm enough in his own being, that he's being weak. And as I asked more questions, he was telling me how silly and stupid my questions were. And we were just so naive as tiny little humans. And he was saying that there was a missing link. And when I asked what that was, he said to achieve something needed to something about knowing the game plan or knowledge. The missing link was knowledge somehow. To acquire the knowledge to be firm with both feet on the ground. And but it couldn't give me the answer to how to do that. So this next part was interesting because he saw, and I think this was coming from his internal being, the image that he got were like a railroad track being disconnected. So it's not, there's a disconnect, it's not connecting. The knowledge can't flow. So nothing's really making sense because the road's misaligned. But it still couldn't tell me what was creating that disconnection. It couldn't answer my question. I knew all this time that we were talking to the Demiurge. And I could see Karen knew it too because she was dying to talk, but I was just letting.
I know. I didn't raise my hand. I was just kind of like waiting till you kept repeating and nothing was happening. Yeah. So then I was like, sometimes I'm just like.
But I wanted him to go through that process of unraveling it and seeing where the holes are in this being who's, super sarcastic, acting like it's the end all be all, that it knows everything, but it can't give us the simple answer to what the missing link is, where the disconnect is. It refuses to answer that question because it doesn't know the answer. And why doesn't it know the answer? Because the answer is self-compassion. The answer is the heart. The answer is that these two roads represent the mind and the heart, and they're not connecting because the missing link here is the lack of self-compassion. Compassion for the inner children, for all the trauma and hurt that this sensitive soul has been through, like really
it's
traumatic.
Like the human component.
Yeah, the compassion for the human. And so what it does is, this is how you're speaking to maybe not totally evil, okay, but an entity that does not have your best interest in mind. First of all, when it's calling you silly and stupid and naive, it's being super sarcastic.
Well, like it's just mimicking what's inside.
Yes. It's
a computer. It's just copying you.
Right. So it's mimicking the parts of him, as we saw in previous sessions, that, just
could be highly critical.
Yeah. So The missing link was self-compassion and
I was just like,
love and love for the inner children that had those experiences, that went through those things, that those things were really real for those children who went through that. And it's not stupid or silly, it's real for them, and they deserve love and compassion. So what this being was trying to do, so it was hooked in through the left side of his brain from that curved computer screen. I think that created the access point. And through that screen, I mean, it's a black mirror, right? It's rewiring the neural pathways, and it's hooking itself in there to the left side, the logical, analytical part of the brain, which is what is this client's vulnerability point, right? So this being also has the lack of heart energy. There's no heart energy here. Yeah, it's super intelligent. It calls itself the end all be all. It's highly technological, but there's a missing link, and the missing link for this is the heart energy. That's how you know you're speaking to the Demiurge, because it's not a true source energy. It's the source of this matrix. And this is how entities, whether it's a Demiurge, so like
what's it?
this, right?
Yeah, agree.
Oh, this bright white light like flashing. That's weird. Like in the tree across the street. What was I saying?
Bright. I know, not bright white light. That's how you know you're speaking to the Demiurge.
Right, because it's missing the heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's missing the heart energy. Like a truly aligned source wouldn't be calling you stupid or silly or sarcastic or naive for asking questions. You know what I mean?
We should ask if we can share that session.
Yeah.
It would just be good to hear just how it speaks. And I was just fascinated by listening to him and being so cocky.
Yeah, because what it doesn't want you to do is look to the subconscious, is look internally. Everything's about looking outside of you. Look at these dark forces that are controlling and manipulating you, but don't look internally. Because when you look internally and you heal those access points that are allowing those dark forces to hook in, where did that Demiurge hook into? It hooked into the logical parts of the brain. It hooked into the parts of the brain that are saying, there's nothing wrong with me. It's these forces outside of me that there's something wrong with. You know, I don't need to look at my childhood. I don't need to look at my relationships. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm fine. And because of that, that's what it's hooking into. And creating, that's what we call a vulnerability point. That's the vulnerability. That's the access point. That's how they're going to access people and use their vulnerabilities against them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they don't want you to look at the subconscious and heal those things. Because if you heal that, they can't use it against you anymore. They can't control you and manipulate you with that anymore. The other part of this is, what did the Demiurge show him? It showed him this highly technological version of himself, this version of himself that was merged with the AI, that felt powerful, that felt good, that he was floating above this magnificent city. Who wouldn't want to feel like this? You know, that's the temptation. Look what you can have if you choose to merge with AI. I mean, that's how tricky they are. Demiurge is very tricky because it knows
Yeah.
how to use your own self against yourself. Like that's basically what
Right.
it's
That's
doing.
what it does.
Yeah. What did you think about that? I thought that was really fascinating, the way that
Yeah.
played out.
Yeah, I was having difficulty at first with that session. Sometimes it's easy for me to put a puzzle together, like when we're in a session. Remember
Mhm.
at one point, I was like, I felt too, which I didn't mention to you, was I was getting distracted through the session, but I felt that was also the energy of the demiurge trying to get me to. My hand was hurting so much, which was
Mm,
activating probably the technology in my hand or whatever
mhm.
the fuck my robo hand. So I was just like massaging it, like while I was listening and like trying to whatever. And and I can multitask. I'm usually like when I'm doing the session, I'm multitasking in my like thinking about what I want to eat, what I'm gonna cook, and how I'm gonna do it. So anyway, all that to say was that I was doing what I was doing, and then after that, I'm just like, I can't figure this out. I go, what if she turns to me and she's like, "What you got there, Kara?" And I'm like, I don't have anything. I have nothing. And as he kept going, I was really grateful that you kept going with him because, yeah, I knew what you're doing. But while I was trying to figure it out, like, hey, what the fuck is the puzzle piece? What is it? What is it? Like, what I'm linking also, because I'm also thinking about what he said previous about the screen. Like I'm just thinking about everything that we were just talking about, and it finally clicked. And that's when I feel confident enough. I'm like, got it, Your Honor. Yeah, but it all linked. Everything just linked together. And all the previous sessions that we've done together too, just like the random like topics of the things that he's healing, actively healing, all came about in this too.
Yeah.
I find like, what happens is that when we're able to open up with somebody and they are able to, just sharing, we're just sharing information, sharing stories, sharing whatever. And I find like there's a nice accumulation process where everything is just getting revealed slowly and it all comes together. I even thought the last session that we did with him was revealing because it brought everything together. It made us understand why, like his why. And then now this one, it just made us understand him even deeper and why, like another why. So yeah, I find the benefits of working on a long-term basis. We're able to really get as much as we can globally on somebody's history and their subconscious through the sessions, through the imagination exercises, through, just like the little things and just the everyday talk,
Mhm.
getting to know them, just who they are, like what's going on with you, like just chatting. Everything was
Yeah,
revealed.
I love working with people long term. Like it's my favorite part of what we do. There's just something so amazing about
Profiling.
it. Yeah, and
Well,
not just
intimately
having,
profiling,
yeah, it's
like
very intimate and getting to know someone and their consciousness and what has shaped them instead of just have like I love one-off sessions too,
mhm.
but like the longer term work,
Oh
I
God, we can
just
go so deep.
so deep and we find the most crazy and amazing things.
Links. Like, like
Links.
with the bulletin board with the red string, that's what we fucking do. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
It really feels like that. We're really able to link everything, almost everything that you give us.
Yeah. But it's like the behind the scenes stuff. It's like you have your physical 3D reality that you're living out, but what we're doing is like behind the scenes investigation, like what's happening energetically. How has your life played out like this and why? Who are the forces behind it?
Yeah.
Because it is true that there are entities from other dimensions that are controlling, dominating, manipulating our lives. That's true. But they can only do that because we are not firm in who we are,
Mm-hmm.
that we have vulnerability points in which they can hook in. So both things are true. You can't have one without the other. So we did go on through finishing that session out. And we saw that when he was 1 year old, he had pneumonia. And because of that vulnerability, these weird entities with no faces were able to cord into his soul and siphon his soul energy over the entirety of his life.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
Yeah. But that was also a good lesson for him in seeing, like, yeah, it's these forces are coming in, but there's also a vulnerability there that is allowing them access. You know what I mean? And he was almost tricked by the Demiurge into believing the lies that it was telling him.
Right.
You know? And
Really,
yeah, I mean,
yes.
I really, yeah, this session was a little more difficult to see the big picture. You know, sometimes like when you're in it, you don't see it right away, even with like regular sessions. But like once you're out of it and have a little bit of time to process, you're like, oh, okay, I see like the whole picture now. And like all the connections and why that played out the way it did. Um, yeah, really, really interesting how that happens sometimes, where sometimes you can see it right away, and sometimes it takes a little bit of processing time to put all the links together.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. But I thought that, again, the entities not having faces, they
Oh,
look
yeah.
just like white, tall mannequins, was interesting because the blurry face thing's been coming up a lot, like in group and in other ways. People have been talking about these like blurry face beings. Have you guys ever saw or connected with anyone that has a blurry face, like even like encountering a human on the street that has a blurry face, or uh, seeing something like that in dreams or anything like that? Because there's been,
I have
oh,
that.
I
Not in
don't know.
physical. I don't think in physical, but dreams. I don't know.
Yeah, people talking about seeing that in the physical. Yeah, so and a lot of what was happening here too is there's beliefs that, you know, I'm not powerful enough. I can't do this on my own. Like, who am I? I'm
Yeah.
just,
There's they purposefully do those limiting beliefs, like implanting those, really bringing down your self-esteem and your self-worth, and like it's all orchestrated from your environment, everybody surrounding you, your life experiences, your family, your friends, your whatever, to do that, like to continuously remind you that you're not worthy or not good enough or whatever it is. So in ways, like they they groom us that way. Like, yeah. So it's hard to for us to build that up again when you can really understand and see how targeted some people can be, or just how the impact of our everyday life has made, or created on us, and how we see ourselves and the world. I find it unlocks, like, that possibility, or that the potential finally to reverse that and be like, aha. I think I say that every video. Aha.
Yeah, I mean the souls that we see are so highly targeted by this system.
Highly.
Highly.
All
Well,
caps and
why
underlined.
why is that though? I think it's because they're the most powerful and these entities get the most energy from that targeting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just see us all like, one day, we're all going to see our physical deaths and we're just flying like the batteries flying away home. Like our bright battery lights flying away.
I've been thinking a lot recently about safety versus freedom and what that means within this system that we find ourselves in. And this all came about, this thought process, because I've been thinking a lot about the outside cats and
Mm-hmm.
struggling so much with what do I do with them? Because I want them to be safe, but I also don't want to take their freedom away, you know?
Yeah. And at what price?
Right. And at what price? Because safety for them, like, means you take them out of their wild environment, vet them, which means they need to be neutered and injected up with all the shots. Maybe put in a cage for a while. Who knows? Like all of those things. And that's what we consider safe in our world. And I just
Yeah. What kind of an option is that? Where's this? Where's the
secret
secret
third
option?
option.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Versus like they have their freedom, right? Like they can run and chase each other and climb trees and roll in the dirt and do what cats do. But and but that also means that they're looking over their shoulder all the time for predators. The big cats that are coming, that are chasing them, or they're scared because there's a huge storm and 50-mile-an-hour winds and they don't know where to go or have a good place to find shelter. And it's just like, yeah, where's the secret third option? Like, why does it have to be that way? And I was thinking about how that theme has been coming up for us over the past 4 years now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Since 2020, and safety versus freedom. And even for us, like when we start to really break free from the matrix, what does that mean? It means that the targeting starts to go up in some ways
Mm-hmm.
when you're breaking free and they feel you breaking free. The targeting will often ramp up at first. So you're like the cat's outside looking over your shoulder all the time for predators.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. I can only imagine that a consciousness like the being that we spoke to, if we want to call that like the Demiurge, would create a system like this where nothing is ever safe. Nothing is sacred. Like it's just survival of the fittest. Dog eat dog.
I'm not fit and I don't eat dog.
but it's just always felt so weird to me,
Weird.
so wrong. Like I remember being little and like my family just they love to go fishing, and I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Like why? Like just for fun? Like you want the fish to swallow the hook? Is that's fun for you? I don't get that. I didn't get that then, and I still don't get it.
Mhm.
But it's like you have to compromise who you are in order to exist here. You know what I mean? Like you have to like start to pretend at some point that it's just normal. It's just what people do when it's really not. It's not normal.
It's not a thing. It shouldn't be a thing. Like
It
that's not a
shouldn't be a thing. Like
thing.
fishing to eat is one thing, but fishing for sport is another.
Well, it's like those people that go hunting and they fucking pose with the head. Like they pull the head up like this and it's all bloody and shit. And I'm like, what are you doing? That's weird. It's not like we go like, go to a funeral home and, go like this next to grandma who's dead right next to me, picture.
Well, right, because we don't value other beings the way we value human beings, and we're naive enough to think that we're actually at the top of the food chain when we're not, first of all.
Fuck no, we're not.
And yeah, it just like things like this, like the apartment complex that I'm in was complaining about the cats, and they had somebody come out, the TNR people, the trap neuter return people.
They did?
Like, yeah. And so I
Hmm.
was talking to last week, I think.
I was there last week.
Yeah, Glenn said they were here. He talked to them, and um she was just like asking him questions about the cats out back, and he's like, they are all like they have their ears tipped, so they're neutered and they're fine. So I guess she was, I don't know, she was he told her, he's like, these cats don't stay here. They come and go. They're community cats. They probably belong to somebody, in the neighborhood. They just the only one that stays here all the time is little Blackie. That's it. Like everyone else just comes and goes. But apparently, Dee said she gets 4 to 5 calls a week. People complaining about the cats, that they're sleeping on their porch, or
4 to 5 calls a
yeah,
week. I haven't seen any cats on the porch. That's bullshit.
yeah, totally.
I
Totally.
barely see cats in the front.
They
Barely.
never,
They
the
never.
only little Blackie will come up once in a while. Like, remember when he was sitting on the neighbor's porch, but they definitely wouldn't have called. The only person I think who would have called in this little strip here is what's her name? The agent.
Mm. Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. But anyway, I was just thinking about the TNR thing, and I'm like, can you imagine if someone just like came, dragged you out of your home, threw you in the back of a van in a cage, took you to a surgery center, took out your ovaries or your testes, sewed you back up, and came back and dropped you off against your will.
I know. I wake up and I have a cone on my head.
And you have a cone on your head, and you're put back out into the wild with your stitches, with nobody to look after you.
Yeah. And a tipped ear.
Yeah, and with your ear chopped off. Like, what is that?
It's holistic. Let's not go there.
No.
But that's holistic.
No, just to say, that's how my mind thinks. But I do understand, of course, from a human perspective, why things like that need to be done. It just really,
Well, yeah.
it just really hurts my heart. like that
that has to be the
that
option.
has to be what's done. Right. That has to be a thing.
Well, they should fucking do it to the people who don't do birth control and they have like 10 million kids and don't take care of them good. You know, then why don't they do it to them? You know?
Speaking of
You
fertility.
know people? Oh, okay. I was like, you know people like that?
Speaking of fertility, another one of our videos was taken down, which is interesting because every time we connect with the Demiurge, one of our videos is taken down. Every time we talk about it, one of our videos is taken down because he has told me before that he limits our reach on YouTube. So there's that. So that was taken down, but that video was about infertility, free will, and ET experiments.
Yeah. What a great topic. I would like to watch that again. I guess we're gonna have to put it on the other platform, but
I was trying to find it and my computer froze.
I bet. Do you have the date that it was done? Okay, so
yeah, and usually I can watch it back, like when they give me the,
it was so good they didn't give you that option.
They didn't give me the option to watch it back.
It was so good then.
Mm-hmm.
How long ago was that done?
Probably 2 years ago.
Years ago. Oh, do you want to talk about our daughter, the medium veterinarian?
Yeah, she's amazing. Hold on, let me see. What's the date on this? I don't know.
I told that story to the other volunteer moms, and they were so amazed and wowed.
Really?
Yeah.
Before we go there, I just want to.
We don't have to.
No, we can. I just want to sum up what we were talking about earlier. So, what the Greys said, or what these beings said. So, we have the hierarchy with the AI, the Demiurge at the top, the Mantis, tall Greys, small Greys, and the others, whoever else is there, the reptiles. So they say, which I think is interesting, the choice of words. Why would they even need to say it's not to dominate you? Why would they need to say that? You know what I mean? Like, that's weird.
Yeah, yeah.
Why would they say that?
But that's such a narc thing to do.
It's to
tell you
change.
exactly what they're doing, or that's how they do it on the news. Because the writers are all those psychopaths.
Right. It's to change societal structures, to change two societal structures that benefit you, and to change to societal structures that benefit nature. There are ways that are very advanced for a society to coexist, but they require reorientation of your sense of self because they involve consciousness technology. So are they talking about the bio-digital convergence here? Are they talking about our merge with technology as a reorientation of our sense of self? Is that what they're actually talking about? Because they're using consciousness technology to invade us right now. Like that's what they're doing. But the way that this is worded, structures that benefit us, structures that benefit society, or nature, it feels like the Great Reset agenda, right? Like everything's about globalism and climate change and
Diversion.
Yeah. Yeah, like we have to protect the planet from the bad humans, which just before we came on, I saw a quick 30-second clip from the WEF. One of the, you know, WEFers talking about how they're going to have to ban coffee now because there's too much CO2 emission with coffee production.
What?
Yeah. And so they have to protect the planet from the bad humans, set up this collective system, hive mind, you know, that's going to control you for your own benefit and the benefit of the planet. So, oh, and he said that the quantum AI God is what they work with. He said that. So they must have told him that. The quantum AI God is what they work with. And it will give you freedom.
Oh, wow.
Which, here we come, full circle, which is exactly what it was trying to show our client. I'll give you freedom. I'll make you powerful if you just merge with technology.
Ta-da.
Look, it all comes around.
See? Bringing the red string back to start.
Yeah. Well, this is pretty long. Do you want to make a separate video about?
We could talk about it another time if it ever comes up. I mean, it's not a
No,
big
I
deal.
would like to, because I want people to know what their kids can do.
Sure.
All right, let's do that. Okay. Well, anything else you want to add to this one before we close out?
No, that was a really good talk. I like listening to you talk. That was really interesting information that we've processed in such a short time. I mean, compared to like where we were talking last time, like I don't even remember anything. But that was a pretty big week on an eye-opening week on AI.
Yeah, and everything happens so fast. It's like we don't really get time to fully process or talk about it or share it. Like it's just
like we're literally sharing days away, like, or what happened today. But 3 days before that, we're like, it's gone. Mind wiped.
Yeah, I do feel like things are really accelerating though. Like time is moving really fast. And I think that's why it's just like, yeah, if we don't like share it right away, it's just gone. It's gone. It's in the past. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, yeah, let us know what you guys, if you guys have any experiences with the Greys or the quantum AI God, the Demiurge, anything you'd like to share, any questions that you have, just leave them in the comments. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye, everybody. Peace.
Bye. Thanks for being here.